How you doing, Todd? Yeah. You can't fall asleep yet. The meeting hasn't started. Didn't you? Uh, thanks for a long day. Oh gosh. Um, I don't know. We could proceed. We have more than a quorum. I mean, you could join us later. Get people on board. Okay. It is now 5:30 on Thursday, January the 19th, 2023. So I'll now call this meeting to order. We are waiting for a seventh member to join us, but no reason to keep you folks waiting while we do that. Who knows what might have happened. So we'll call it meeting to order and proceed. The first thing I'd like to do is introduce the staff. The gentleman sitting at the table is Dylan Pivenich, the planning director. On Dylan's left is Lila Osborne, senior planner. Directly across from Lila is Joella Thomas, planning technician, and on Joella's left is Robin Smith, administrative assistants. The members present tonight are Gary Craig on my far left, Sylvia Cunningham. On my far right is Tyler Schaefer, Todd Collins, and Lauren Burmeister. My name is Dave Wing, and I will be chairing the meeting tonight. The seventh member, when he shows up, will be John Reese. So the first matter before us is a preliminary matter. We need to approve the minutes of the last two minutes of July 21 and the minutes of August 18. Does the board have an opportunity to review those minutes?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes from the said meetings.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye. Aye. The minutes have been approved by voice vote. Now, the first substantive matter that we have on the agenda tonight is special use application 22-013, special use permit by Sunshine Welsh. Is Sunshine Welsh present tonight? Okay, thank you. Will there be a presentation by a member of the staff? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Sunshine, for being here again. The first presentation tonight is for special use 22-13. The applicant is Sunshine Welsh, and the proposal is for an Airbnb in an existing residence. It's a 2-bedroom residence. Lodging provided by a homeowner for compensation is recognized as a special use allowed in any residential zoning district, provided that the prescribed use is in harmony with the other uses permitted in the zone and not found to be contrary to public interest. The process provides for a review of physical conditions which exist at the location, the conduct and operation of the proposed use, and whether the combination of these factors will be compatible with the proposed site and surrounding area. To provide the board with information about the proposed special use, the applicant and planning staff have responded to the established 20 questions, and most of those questions will be covered in this presentation. First, it's within the R2 two-family residence zone, that yellow. Here's an aerial up on Missoula. The property is in an R2 zone. It's a single-family home with a footprint of 908 square feet, and the subject parcel is about 3,500 square feet. Here's some pictures. So it's this blue house on the far left. And here's looking west down Missoula. Again, it's this blue house right on the street here. And this would be the parking area, but we'll talk about that later. This is looking east, so you can't see the house in this picture, but it would be right here on the other side of this boarded up house. The property in question is located within an area that contains mostly single-family residences. The lots that surround the property are about 3,000 to 3,500 square feet in size. The parcel located directly to the north, south, and east are single-family residences. Located to the west is a vacant lot, and the surrounding area is within an R2 zone. There have been no changes in the zoning ordinance to this area, and the property is located within the Uptown neighborhood place type in the comprehensive plan. This place type represents a traditional urban neighborhood with a predominance of single-family attached and detached residential units and limited neighborhood commercial. Uptown neighborhoods are located within the Butte Historic District and are defined by the character and quality of architecture found at the turn of the century. This place type flanks the Uptown core place type to the west and wraps around to the north and south of the district, acting as an intact neighborhood complementary of many of the historic characteristics found in Uptown Butte. Here's that place type designation, Uptown neighborhood. Proposed fencing, screening, and landscaping. What's there will stay there. The applicant is not proposing any changes concerning landscaping or fencing, and the property is landscaped in a typical fashion for residential dwelling units. There is a chain link fence around the entire property. Vehicle access, circulation, and parking. Vehicle access to and from the property is adequate for the proposed use. The access is provided via Missoula Ave to the front of the residence, so just across Missoula there's this space and this one. This would be considered on-street parking. Handicapped access may be a concern as the entrance from the street to the home is rather narrow, may not allow for handicapped accessibility. The entrance to the exterior door and porch is at street level. So here's another picture that just shows that entrance at street level, and then across the street are 2 parking spaces. Regarding signs and lighting, the applicants have indicated that they don't intend to install signage. Regarding lighting, the existing lighting is typical of a residential neighborhood. There's a street light located just east of the property, and there's a small porch light at the entrance of the home. all potential nuisances. Increase traffic in the neighborhood, so long as the occupancy level of the residence is in conformance with the residential building code, it should not increase traffic. Parking, some on-street parking places are available. If the applicants are limited to occupancy level dictated by the size of the house, there should not be any more of a parking issue than if the house were inhabited long-term. Wayfinding, staff believes that the address should be clearly posted on the front of the residence and be visible from the street to mitigate the potential for guests to mistake a neighbor's home for the rental unit. And noise, staff would suggest that the owner does enforce rules through the online hosting programs to regulate noise. The Butte-Silver Health Department has regulations related to providing rooms for rent, and those are included in the conditions standard for Airbnbs. And the occupancy level of the building, which is determined by the building official, provides for public health and safety by limiting the occupancy of the residence. Staff believes that the proposed use is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance to allow for the reasonable use of private property. The zoning ordinance permits certain commercial uses to be located within all residential zones after review by the Zoning Board of Adjustment. The special use application process was created to ensure that these types of businesses do not negatively impact adjacent residences. Anytime a commercial business encroaches into a residential neighborhood, there's a potential for the use to negatively impact the surrounding property owners. In this case, when considering the low impact commercial nature of the business and the owners limiting the number of occupants, staff feels that it would appear to have a minimal impact on adjacent properties and property owners. So based on the previous information, staff's analysis of the review criteria, and any public opinion as it relates to the criteria, the board must determine if the applicant has presented evidence to the satisfaction of the board that said undue detriment will not result from the granting of a special use permit for this short-term rental. Based on the municipal code section that deals with special or conditional uses, the decision of the board requires staff to refer the application to the board within 15 days of the receipt of the application and all requested information. The board then has 60 days to deny the application and give reason for denial, or approve the application, and the zoning officer shall issue a zoning compliance permit with conditions specified thereon. And that is all.
Thank you, Lila. Do any board members have any questions of the staff? I'm not hearing any. I'll ask the applicant to come forward, please, if you would, Ms. Welsh. First of all, I would ask if you have anything you would like to add to the staff presentation that would aid us in making our decision tonight.
Yeah, it seemed pretty complete. I will add that the intention is for me to move into the property. At this point, I have a job in Bozeman, so I'm working on that process of moving in, and so the short-term rental is until I'm able to move into the residence, so just
Okay.
adding that information.
Okay. All right. Second, there's a series of conditions that we usually impose before we grant a special use permit for an Airbnb or VRBO. Have you reviewed those conditions, and are they acceptable to you?
Yes, I have reviewed them, and they are acceptable.
Okay, thank you. Do any board members have any questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you, Ms. Welsh. Is there anybody present tonight that would like to speak in support of this application? Is there anybody present tonight that would like to speak against the application? Yes, sir, if you could identify yourself by giving your name and address. Not too well, there's a little, there you go.
Chairman Wayne, my name is Chris Harris, 820 West Galena. I'm generally in favor of zoning changes. I'm not in favor of this one or the next one or the next one. So I only want to, my argument is against everyone this evening. And the problem specifically is this. We hear the term proposed use. For the record, that's an abstract term. That has nothing to do with the practicalities of these situations as they exist on the ground. Tenants show up, snowmobiles, F-350s, F-450s. There's no way to determine unloading snowmobiles, doing everything that a motel parking lot is designed to do. That's what motel parking lots are for. So the idea that one can determine the proposed use and an outcome based on that is a fallacy. You can screen. You have no idea what you're going to get in the end, and you have no idea how people are going to behave, and you have no idea there's no way to address an overburdened parking situation on the public streets. All of those activities that I just mentioned are technically permitted, in fairness, technically permitted in a residential neighborhood. They don't run afoul of the ordinance. The problem is that the rest of the people in the residential neighborhood are not inured to this. It's unacceptable to them. I listened to people warming diesel trucks and unloading snowmobiles at 4 in the morning for months on end down on West Galena. There's no way, as a practical matter, to put this in. Proposed use is abstract. There's no way that you're going to determine how this comes out in the end. This is more than the residential people have bargained for, and I would encourage you to deny this one and the next one and the next one. And please send a letter to the county attorney and to the Council of Commissioners and ask them to get in front of this issue, because we're not. Chairman Wing, members of the board.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Harris. Is there anybody else that would care to speak against this application? Sir, if you could come forward and identify yourself and give your address.
My name is Gilbert Herrera. I live at 821 West Mercury.
I'm sorry, West Mercury?
821 West Mercury, yes. I oppose this, and I guarantee a lot of our neighbors do as well. It's going to create nothing but parking issues, all kinds of problems, people that we don't know. Not to say whether it's still or not, our next door neighbor at 825, when he purchased the house last year, set it up as a B&B in June. And I know this for a fact because he had a company come in and setting everything up. So there was no permit to have that one done. Whether he is still doing it or not, I cannot say for sure. I haven't seen the listing on it. But since then, we have seen probably 30 or 40 people all through there. And during that time, you know, sometimes things would come up missing in the neighborhood and stuff like that. And we don't want that there. They have hotels, just like he had stated, they have hotels, you know, for stuff like this. You know, this is our neighborhood. You know, during folk festival and stuff like that, we literally had to park 2 blocks away because we could not park in front of our house from, you know, all the traffic that was coming in and out of that house. Now, right now, there's only one person living there. Like I said, I can't say whether it still is or not. But as a homeowner on that street on West Mercury, we do not want that Airbnb in our neighborhood. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Is there anybody else that would care to speak against this application? Yes, ma'am, if you come forward and identify yourself and give your address.
My name is Gina Sandin, and I also live at 821 West Mercury. My concern specifically with these, and she had said that she's moving into the residence, so is she also like then just renting out one room? I noticed her address is in Bozeman. The person who was doing an Airbnb next to our house without a permit, last summer, one of the people that rented the place water outside on for 48 hours, and I had to call the city to come shut it off because there was no response from the homeowner whose phone number we did have, is if there's an emergency, if there's noise complaints, who will be there to take care of that? If they're not in town, how, those are my questions, how will those things get taken care of? One of the things specifically, there's one proposed, a legal one proposed just down the street from my house, and I'm opposed to that because in our neighborhood, I bought that, my house, because it was a nice white neighborhood with mostly middle-aged professionals and retirees. And you get to know the people and know that your community's safe. You know who belongs there and who doesn't belong there. And our across the street neighbors just had their truck stolen with all their kids' Christmas presents in it. And I attribute that to the fact that there's suddenly all these strangers on our street. How do we know when something is wrong if we can't get to know our neighbors? If I wanted to live next door to a hotel, that's where I would have bought my house. And again, you know, in Uptown Butte, I mean, that looks like it's got a lot better of a situation than West Mercury. But currently on West Mercury, probably the #1 police complaint on the 800 block of West Mercury is people fighting over parking. People who have all their friends over, their political parties. Jim Kephart's our neighbor. He's, you know, we cannot park on our own street. My daughter, who works until 2 in the morning, has to park around the corner and walk to our house. A young 24-year-old female. And we have all these strangers now because proposed legal ones, illegal ones, there was also a guy renting out the house across the street to people. He wasn't the owner, he was illegally doing it, but that's neither here nor there. We had a big snowstorm and it knocked down the trees across the sidewalk. Nobody came to take care of it. I went across there and trimmed the trees. People, on a principle, I'm not necessarily opposed to an Airbnb, but I'm opposed to the additional traffic, the strangers. We can't get used to our neighborhood. We have to fight with parking, which we already do. It's upsetting.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anybody else that would care to speak against this application? Ms. Welsh, you now have the opportunity to speak in rebuttal and address the objections or concerns that were voiced by the opponents.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to respond. Thank you for all the comments. I do have a local representative, so just that is not an issue. There's somebody that lives here in Butte that has agreed to come forward if there are any issues or noise complaints or anything else. So there is that in place. For parking in this specific location, there are 2 spaces available, which I believe is adequate for this use. If somebody was to live in the home, it's possible that the occupants would have 2 cars. So I don't think parking in this specific neighborhood would be an issue. I am sympathetic to some of the issues that were brought forth as far as not being able to park, but given that that's in another neighborhood, I don't think it's applicable to this particular application. I would also like to add that we can never really guarantee who our neighbors are, whether they live in a place long-term or whether they're short-term rentals. What I like about Airbnb is there's some accountability involved because there are reviews. The person that stays will leave a review and the person who runs the Airbnb will also leave a review, so there's some accountability there to treat the property well and to behave in a good manner.
Thank you. Now close the public portion of the meeting and open up for board discussion. Do any board members have any comments or thoughts with regard to this application?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, these things are difficult. we've heard the neighbors, or seems to be more of the neighbors on Mercury Street, for, I think, is obviously a case we have here in a little bit, but I understand these. In fact, I live just rather closely to the West Mercury thing. I know we're talking about the Missoula Street one. Parking's gonna be an issue no matter what. I just came home from work today to get ready to come here. I couldn't park in front of my own house, because I coincidentally live next to, a physical therapy office and, office that does some other things, and I couldn't park in front of my house today. I was mad. It was frustrating. I get that. My thought on this, though, is I do echo Ms. Welch's comment that you really have no control over who your neighbors are, whether they're buying a house next to you. You know, we could all buy any house in any neighborhood if we had the money and rent it to someone, you know, and right now, you know, you could have a tenant in a house on a month-to-month lease, and they could change, in theory, every month. You know, we all know that there's hundreds of these online to rent at any given time in Butte. We could probably count on one or two, maybe three hands, how many have actually came up here and gone through a process that have put any conditions on their house. So I just feel like we don't have a ton of control over this. You know, we start just rejecting them, they're just gonna still go rent online, and there's really nothing we can do about it, you know, at this time. Until, like Mr. Harris said, the commissioners have some sort of plan in place, and right now I don't think we do, so this is the best we have, and it's not great, it's not fun for the neighbors, I get that. I just don't know if we have really any control over saying who can and can't be in a house and when, and I think that's just a little out of our purview, and I'm sorry for that, but, so that being said, I guess I'm in support of this.
Todd, did you have a comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to address the parking issue. That uptown corridor from, say, Caledonia or even higher and west, you know, south, and then west of Montana Street in particular, all the way up to Tech, is a problem. It's always been a problem. I have a friend of mine who lives over on the last block on West Gold. He is constantly, you know, there's people parking the wrong way. They'll rent a 4-bedroom house out, and there's, you know, at one time there's, 12 people there, there's 10 cars. It's something that the parking commission really should, you know, hold people's feet to the fire for these things. You know, boyfriends, girlfriends staying overnight. One guy lost the keys to his car that was parked in my buddy's driveway and lost them for like 3 weeks. And I would have lost it. I would have had it towed, but he's pretty good about it. The parking problem, the people that are going to come in here, and this is what I like about the short-term rentals. It polices itself. The bad apples, you know, if there is a bad apple that comes in and does something, you know, like a parking problem with a bunch of snowmobiles and stuff, they're gonna find out about it, and, you know, it's a network, so they won't be able to do it again. And I get it. I lived on the 300 block of South Idaho my whole life, and, you know, we had parking problems even over there. So I don't think that's I really don't think I don't think that these short-term rentals are gonna add any appreciable problem to the parking issue. And you know, as far as the stealing goes, crimes committed in your neighborhood, these people have got money. They come in and they rent these places by the night. I don't think they're stealing your cars or your stuff. It's, you know, it's the crackheads and these people that are going around stealing stuff out of your garages and stuff, and I put up with it up there for years. So, you know, I would be in favor of this application we're talking about right now. I don't think it's gonna be a problem.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Collins. Any other board members have any comments with regard to this particular matter? Mr. Burmeister?
I'll make a brief comment. I do agree with I think Tyler in particular. This is an issue that the council needs to take up and come up with a solution for the community. What's been presented to us tonight, as it relates to a special use, I do think is consistent with the requirements of a special use permit. I think I'm gonna have to vote in favor of it, even though I do certainly empathize with all of the complaints. Uptown Butte is difficult, streets are difficult, parking is difficult, lot size is difficult. It's the nature of the uptown corridor, and I also agree with Todd that, this problem isn't fully accountable to short-term rentals. It's a problem that exists regardless of what the property is being used for. Every family typically owns multiple vehicles, and it's gonna be a problem. But I just wanted to get on the record saying that I think the council should take this up and give it more thought, so, that's all.
Thank you. Garrett, Sylvia, do you have any comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would just echo everyone else. I definitely get the concerns, whether it's theft or parking. But I think those are all separate issues from the special use permit for an Airbnb. And so I would be in favor of it as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, we now reviewed and commented on it, and I think we're in a position to vote with regard to this particular matter. So we can now do that. We should have a motion, and there's one more thing that I want to, typically, as the indicated, we have up to a period of time to vote on this. And I guess I should get the sense of the board as to whether we want to dispose of this.
Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to address it with a vote, obviously, tonight.
I am as
And
well.
Yeah,
That
I am
being said,
myself.
I will make a motion that we approve
Okay.
special use, 22-13.
So moved.
Oh, with conditions as outlined in the staff report, yes.
So moved.
We can now vote. All 6 votes are for the motion, so that means that your application has been approved, and you will be receiving a letter from the planning staff to that effect. Thank you tonight. The next matter on our agenda is special use application 2214. And since we had a change of seats there, it looks like Joella's going to present this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Board. This is for special use 22-14. Again, it's for another Airbnb located at 410 West Granite, and the applicant's name is Zachary Sharon, which is also the applicant for the next special use that I'll be doing. The proposal is to rent out a one-bedroom accessory dwelling unit in the back of the residence for overnight stay and short-term through online hosting programs. Lodging provided by homeowners for compensation is recognized as a special use allowed in any residential zone district, provided that the prescribed use is in harmony with the other uses permitted in the zone and not found to be contrary to the public interest. The process provides for review of physical conditions which exist at the location, the conduct and operation of the proposed use, and whether the combination of these factors will be compatible with the proposed site and surrounding area. To provide the board with information about the proposed use, the applicant and planning staff have responded to the next 20 questions. Here's an aerial view. The red area is actually where the house and the accessory dwelling unit is, but the applicant also owns the area outlined in yellow, which is more of like their yard. It didn't look like they were combined lots, but both of those properties go with this particular application. It is in the R3 zoning district. The property is in an R3 zoning district. The home is a single family with an accessory dwelling unit in the back. It's a one bedroom with about 630 square feet. Here's a couple photos. This is the actual residence where the applicant lives. And back here is the dwelling unit. Access to this unit is in the back in the alley. This is looking west down Granite Street. It's in a location where other single and multifamily homes are located. Most of the lots in this area are 2,300 square feet to 10,000 square feet in size. Parcels located across the alley from the parcel are also single and multifamily homes located in the R3 zone as well. There have been no changes in the zoning ordinance in this area. The property in question is located in the Uptown Edge place type in the comprehensive plan. The Uptown Edge place type serves as a transitional area immediately surrounding the Uptown core. It's intended for a mix of commercial-centric development interspersed with multifamily residential, but at a scale less dense than in the core itself. It connects to the Uptown core with the economic driver place types to the west, including Montana Tech and hospital campuses. There's no proposed changes to landscaping. It's landscaped in a fashion suitable for residential. Vehicular access to and from the property is acceptable for the proposed use. The access is provided via West Granite Street to the front of the residence, and there's an alley to the south. There's a single parking space located in the alley. Handicap access may be of concern as there are stairs to access the rental, and applicant has indicated that he will state that in his listing. This photo up here, right where the green car is where the parking space would be located for the individuals renting the accessory unit. Here's another photo of the front with the accessory unit in the back there. The applicant has indicated that he doesn't intend to install any signage, but that the address will be posted in an obvious location. Regarding lighting, the existing lighting is typical of a residential neighborhood. The potential nuisances increase traffic in the neighborhood. As long as the occupancy level of the residence is in conformance with the residential building code, it shouldn't increase the traffic. Some off-street parking places, if the applicants are limited to occupancy levels dictated by the size of the rental, there shouldn't be any more of a parking issue than if the house were inhabited long-term. Wayfinding, staff does believe that the address should be clearly posted and be visible from the street to mitigate the potential for guests mistaking a neighbor's home for the rental unit. Staff would suggest that the owner does enforce rules through the online hosting program to regulate noise. And as indicated, the applicant does live on site in the residence in front of it. Butte-Silver Health Department regulations related to providing rooms for rent and occupancy levels of the building is reviewed by the building department. Staff believes that the proposed use is consistent with the intent of the zoning ordinance to allow for reasonable use for the private property. The zoning ordinance permits certain commercial uses to be located within all residential zones after review by the Zoning Board of Adjustments. The special use application process was created to ensure these types of businesses don't negatively impact the adjacent residents. Anytime a commercial business encroaches into a residential neighborhood, there is a potential for use to negatively impact the surrounding property owners. In this case, when considering the low-impact commercial nature of the business and the owners limiting the number of occupants, staff does feel that it would appear to have a minimal impact on adjacent properties and property owners. Based on the above information, staff's analysis of the review criteria and any public opinion as it relates to the criteria, the board must determine if the applicant has presented evidence to the satisfaction of the board that said undue detriment will not result from granting a special use permit for the short-term rental. Section 1738-160, special or conditional use permit decision of the board, requires staff to refer the application to the board within 15 days of receipt and all requested information. The board shall within 60 days deny the application and give reason for the denied application in writing or approve the application, and the zoning official shall issue a zoning compliance permit with the conditions specified therein. Thank you.
Thank you. Any board members have any questions of the staff? Okay. All right. Could the applicant please come forward and identify yourself by giving your name and address?
Yeah, hi, my name's Zach Sharon, and I live at 410 West Granite Street.
Okay. Do you have anything that you would like to add to the presentation that was made by the staff?
No, I just thank you for putting that together, and thank you all for being here. I would just state that I do live on site, and so if there is problems, if there are noise complaints, I will be aware of it, and I will limit the noise. Parking issues, there should hopefully be. I'm gonna limit it to 1 car and then 2 cars with approval. It's only a little studio place, so I hope that parking won't be an issue, but no, I don't have anything else.
Okay. With regard to the conditions that we typically impose with regard to these special use permits, if we were to grant them, have you reviewed those conditions?
I have, yes.
And are they acceptable to you?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Is there anybody present that would like to speak in support of this application? Hearing nobody, is there anybody present that would like to speak against this application? Once again, hearing nobody, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and open it for board discussion.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this one I have even less of a problem with Mr. Sharon living on site. Even if you had this house is very close to mine now too, and parking, I don't think at this house could ever be an issue because it does have a lot of street space in front of it. Fairly large yard. It's a beautiful house we've all seen, but I just have no issue with this, and I would also echo my comments from the last one that this is something that needs to be addressed elsewhere. But with that being said, I would be in support of this.
Thank you, Tyler. Is there any other board members who would like to comment with regard to?
I'd be in support as well,
Okay,
Mr.
thank you.
Chairman.
Thank you, Todd. Any further comments? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve special use permit 2214-14 with conditions as outlined in the staff report.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and we can now vote. Thanks. Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All 6 votes are for the motion, so your application has been approved, and you will be receiving a letter from the planning staff to that effect. So, thank you, sir. So the final matter on our agenda tonight is special use application 2215. Again, another application by Mr. Sharon, would that be correct? Okay, thank you. And Joelle, you'll be doing this one also?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Board. Again, this application is also by Zachary Sharon of 410 West Granite, and it's a proposal for another Airbnb in a residential neighborhood. This one, he is proposing to rent out a 4-bedroom residence for overnight stays. I'm going to kind of skip through the staff findings. They're the same as the prior two, if that's okay.
Sure, you bet.
Here's an aerial view. In the blue here is the location of this rental property. The zoning district, again, is in an R3 zone. And again, it's in the blue. The property is an R3 zone. The home is a single-family residence with a footprint of about 1,147 square feet in size. Here's a couple photos of the outside view of the rental. The property in question is located within or containing single-family and multifamily homes. Most of the lots are between 3,000 to 4,000 square feet in size, and the properties surrounding this particular parcel are also in the R3 zone. There have been no changes to the zoning ordinance in this area. The property in question is located within the Uptown Neighborhood Place type in the comprehensive plan. Uptown Neighborhood Place type represents a traditional urban neighborhood with a predominance of single-family attached and detached residential units and limited neighborhood commercial. They are located within the Butte Historical District and are defined by the character and quality of architecture found at the turn of the century. Here's the comprehensive plan. As you can see, the blue is the location for the rental, and we're in the Uptown neighborhood. Just above it is the Uptown edge. There's no proposed changes concerning landscaping. There is a fence surrounding this property as well. Vehicular access to and from the property is acceptable for the proposed use. The access is provided via West Mercury to the front of the residence with room for 1 to 2 parking spaces and an alley to the north. There is a 1-car garage with 1 parking spot located in the back of the home. And handicap access may be a concern as there are stairs to access the home. Applicant again has indicated that this will be noted in his listing. Some more visuals of the property. The applicants have indicated that they don't intend to install any signage, but the address will be posted in an obvious location. Regarding lighting, the existing lighting is typical of a residential neighborhood. Again, the nuisances, as long as occupancy levels of the residence is in conformance with the residential building code, it shouldn't increase any traffic. There is some off-street parking places if the applicants are limited to occupancy levels dictated by the size. There shouldn't be any more of a parking issue than if the house were inhabited long-term. Staff does believe that the address should be clearly posted. Noise, staff would suggest that the owner does enforce rules through online hosting programs to regulate noise. And again, the applicant does live within a short distance from this rental. Butte-Silver Health Department regulations related to providing rooms for rent and occupancy levels of the building is reviewed by the building department for public health and safety. Staff does believe that the proposed use is consistent with the intent of the zoning ordinance to allow for reasonable use of the property. And the zoning ordinance permits certain commercial uses to be located within all residential zones after review by the zoning board. The special use application process was created to ensure these types of businesses don't negatively impact the adjacent residents. This is located in the central neighborhood, Butte neighborhood. The blue area is the location. It's just right on the edge there. Conformity of the proposed use with the neighborhood plan. The parcel in question is in the central Butte neighborhood planning area. This consists of 6 historic neighborhoods. They have a sustainable mix of residential, business, education, and medical care uses. The area is in the cornerstone of the National Historic Landmark District and gateway to Uptown Butte. The planning area's neighborhood have complete infrastructure, including sidewalks, streets, and quality outdoor spaces. Neighborhood plans are required by state law to be consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan. This plan proposes that residential and commercial be allowed as mixed use throughout Central Butte. This plan does conform to the growth policy, clearing encouragement for retaining the historic character of Central Butte by using form-based or design code instead of traditional zoning. This proposal is in conformance with the future land use plan to encourage mixed-use development that includes non-residential uses such as small inns up to 12 units, bed and breakfast facilities. Anytime a commercial business encroaches into a residential neighborhood, there is that potential for use to negatively impact the surrounding property. In this case, when considering the low-impact commercial nature of the business and the owner limiting the number of occupants, staff feels that it would appear to have a minimal impact on adjacent properties. Again, the conclusions are redundant from the last.
Sure.
If you don't mind, I'll skip over those.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, do any board members have any questions of the staff with regard to this application? Well, again, ask the applicant to come forward, and once again, if you could, just for the record, identify yourself and give your address.
Yeah, my name's Zachary Sharon, 410 West Granite Street.
Okay. And do you have anything you'd like to add with regard to this particular application?
No, just thanks again. That was very thorough. I will just say I do live nearby, as she said, and so I am always available to my fellow neighbors if anything ever does arise. I'm always willing to walk on down and solve any issues that might come up. But no, I don't have anything else to add.
And the standard set of conditions, they're acceptable to you with regard to this matter also?
They are, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anybody present that would like to speak in support of this application? Is there anybody present that would like to speak against this application? Yes, ma'am, if you could come forward and once again, just for the record, identify yourself and give your address.
My name is Gina Sandin. I live at 821 West Mercury, which is approximately 4 doors down from the proposed Airbnb. This neighborhood is very different than the other neighborhoods listed tonight. Literally, I can barely stand between mine and my neighbor's house. I can go like this and touch both houses. They are very close together. The current parking situation doesn't even accommodate the people that live there. The alleyways with these electrical garages and parking spaces in the back, recently, the big trucking couldn't even do the standard garbage pickup because somebody was parked in the back next to the designated parking space, but they could not get their truck through there because of that parking. Also, for people people who are not familiar with the neighborhood, it can be very dangerous to go out on to Excelsior. We kind of jokingly, but it's really very serious, are like Russian roulette, because one of these times somebody's going to hit us. You cannot see on either direction. So people unfamiliar with that danger may be very at risk. So these people that are coming here from out of town. Also, it is right across the street from Cinder Ball Field. So as you know, the 3rd of July, not only are there the cars in our neighborhood that don't fit there, every single person in Butte comes to park there. And it's just, this neighborhood cannot accommodate a business. It just can't. And before you vote, I encourage you to go down our street, see how close the houses are together, see how many cars are there at this time of day. Walk down the alley and see that there is no way a modern vehicle can make it into a garage, and see that those designated parking spaces in the back are in the way of just simple business practices like McGree Trucking picking up our garbage. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anybody else that would care to speak in opposition to this application? Not hearing anybody. Mr. Sharon, you now have the opportunity to provide rebuttal to the objections that were lodged.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. I will say I did live at the property for 2.5 years before moving to my current 410 West Grand Street location. Parking is a problem. I was contributing to that problem when I lived there. I had 2 cars and a recreational vehicle, but I would say that's in line with most people probably. The parking spot in the back was where I parked my recreational vehicle. It was a 17-foot long, 3,500 giant van. I never, I guess, had any complaints from McGree Trucking or from any of my neighbors regarding the van, and I would hope that any Airbnb guest parking there would not be driving anything that wouldn't fit, and if they were, I would hope that my neighbors would tell me and I would let them know they're not able to park that there. I am also planning on posting a limit to the amount of vehicles that guests can bring, and if there are so many guests coming and they for some reason have more than the allotted vehicles, I would ask them to park over at the park and walk back to the residence. Yeah, that's all though.
Thank you, sir. Close the public portion of the meeting and open up for board discussion.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, again, I would echo what I said earlier. This one does hit near and dear for me because I live right in this neighborhood. Parking is terrible. The house across the street from me, I wish I could trade it for an Airbnb. The house across the street from me is a 3-bedroom college frat house that I literally, one night after a Tech football game, watched police escort probably 50 to 60 people out of it at 3:30 a.m. And I was just sitting on my porch because I couldn't sleep. It was miserable, but I just want to reiterate, we frankly don't have control over this. I don't think anyone wants to live in a place where some volunteer city council can tell people who can and can't be in a house. It's not what any of us want to do. I feel better about this because Mr. Sharon does live 2 blocks away. He has lived in this house for 4 years. I can see this house from my window. I get it. I understand. Frankly, I think a lot of the concerns, or most of the concerns that have been brought up by Mr. Herrera and Ms. Sandin, frankly need to be addressed with the parking commission or the parking enforcement people. I mean, my in-laws live on Excel. I go to pick my daughter up there. I have to turn on. You do close your eyes and hope someone doesn't hit you sometimes. You can't see. But that's not in front of us tonight, and I'm sorry. I get it, and what I want to argue is that we just don't have any power over this. We don't, and that's my 2 cents, and I do sympathize with you, and I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Collins.
I would suggest that you as homeowners, or even if you're renting there, contact your commissioner. Do you know who your commissioner is? Find out, you can.
Bill Anderson.
It's Bill Anderson. And you can call the office here and get his number, get him on the phone, and the more the merrier. If you have a crowd of people who are unhappy with the parking situation in your neighborhood, you know, use your commissioner. That's what they're there for. And get as many people involved as you can and see if you can, you know, at least partially fix this. And another point I wanted to make is, you know, that uptown area that you're in, it's a beautiful area. I love it. I've been in love with Butte my whole life. It was laid out in the 1800s. Nobody had cars. They had probably a small stable in the back for a horse and buggy. So none of that was thought of. Most of these lots are substandard, so they don't have any frontage to park in. I get it. But I think you really need to start with your commissioner, get as many of your constituents on board as you can, and get on the agenda of the Council of Commissioners and see if you can get it to happen. And, you know, this problem is really out of our wheelhouse. We hear it all the time when there's something going on in that core area, because it's a fact, there's not enough parking. Okay? That's all I have to say.
Collins. Any further comments? Okay. Anybody care to make a motion with regard to this matter?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve special use permit 22000015 with conditions as stated.
Is there a second?
I'll second that one.
Moved and seconded, we can now vote. All 6 votes are for the motion. That means that your application has been approved also with regard to this application, and you will be receiving a letter to that effect in the mail. Thank you for coming here tonight. You can hang around for other business too if you want to. Do we have other business tonight?
Mr. Chairman, I just did want to mention that the consultants that are drafting the new zoning ordinance are going to present next week at the planning board. They did an audit of our existing code, and they're going to present their findings to the planning board next Thursday at 5:30, if you're interested.
Is my zone gonna change?
Solar.
Well, it is right now.
It is going to be a comprehensive rewrite. Everything's going to change.
We're gonna put a bunch of solar panels around your house.
Well, that's what I had planned. I just wanted to know.
Batteries on that. So
Batteries, yeah, batteries. Okay.
Yeah. Please.
Yeah,
Please do.
that's all I had.
So, okay, thank you. I guess the meeting is now adjourned then, unless the board has any questions or concerns. Okay.